Hey, welcome. Today we're going to dig into a really fascinating text that asks a pretty profound question about faith and our actions. What is it that actually makes our service meaningful? It's an idea that really gets to the heart of what worship is all about.
So right out of the gate, our source material hits us with this really challenging question. I mean, just think about that for a second. Can you serve God, but have it all mean absolutely nothing? It's a pretty startling thought that all your effort, all your work could just, add up to zero.
And this quote just sharpens that point perfectly. It forces us to draw a line in the sand between simply working and genuinely worshiping. The idea here, which is so powerful, is that these two things are not automatically the same. That's a huge distinction to make right from the start. So, this brings us to our first big idea here, this problem of worthless work. Let's really unpack this concept that our efforts, no matter how big or important they seem to us, could ultimately be found worthless in the grand scheme of things.
To explain this, the text pulls out this incredible metaphor from the Apostle Paul. The idea is that the real value of our work isn't judged by how it looks on the outside, but it's only revealed when it passes through this trial by fire. Only the stuff built on a pure, true foundation is going to survive that.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On one side, you've got work built with hay and wood. It's flammable, it's temporary. It represents that kind of empty service that just turns to ash. But on the other side, you've got work built with gold and iron. It endures, it's valuable, and it represents true worship that brings glory.
Okay, so this begs the question, right? Why is some work empty and some meaningful? To really get to the bottom of this, the source uses this powerful central metaphor, comparing two very, very different people in a household.
So here it is, the key takeaway. It's not just about what you do, but about who you are in relation to the master of the house. It's your identity, your connection, that gives your actions all their weight and all their meaning.
So first up, we have the slave. You can almost think of this person as like an outside contractor. Their service is completely transactional. They show up, they do the tasks, they do the work. But like the slide says, there's no real intimacy there, no deep knowledge of the master. They just come and go.
But then, in complete contrast, you have the son. Now, the son isn't a contractor. They belong there. They abide in the house forever. And for them, work isn't some transaction. It's just an extension of who they are. Because they have that deep, intimate relationship, their actions just naturally line up with the Father's will.
Okay, so if the goal is to be a son and not a slave, how do we make that happen? What's the key that unlocks that whole transformation? Well, according to our source, there's this one single crucial element that almost everyone seems to overlook. And this one element is presented as the total game changer. It's the thing that can take our actions from being just, work, and turn them into a real act of worship.
And that element is the fear of the Lord. Now hold on, I know what you're probably thinking. That phrase can really be misunderstood, so let's get super clear on how the source defines it.
So let's be absolutely clear about what this fear means. It has nothing to do with being terrified or scared, not at all. It's described as a profound reverence, this deep, abiding respect that naturally leads to obedience. It's about putting your own will, your own agenda aside, and instead aligning yourself completely with the will of the Father.
The text goes on to argue that when you embrace this kind of fear, this reverence, it leads to a totally different kind of blessing than what we normally think of. It completely reframes our whole idea of success.
And this really makes you stop and ask, doesn't it? When we think about being blessed, what's the first thing that pops into our heads? The source really challenges us to dig deeper than the obvious answers.
And this is where that contrast just pops. You've got the worldly view of blessing, the tangible stuff, the cars, the houses, the money. But the source kind of dismisses that, saying, hey, anyone can have those things. A true blessing is an internal state. It's that spiritual alignment that only comes from fearing God.
So instead of talking about wealth, the source points us to this absolutely beautiful imagery from Psalm 128. Here, real blessings are all about a life of fruitfulness, a strong family, an enduring legacy, symbolized by that fruitful vine and those sturdy olive plants. The whole focus is on life and growth, not on stuff.
Now, all of this is building toward an ultimate transformation, which hangs on another really fascinating distinction the source makes, the difference between having God's image and his likeness.
So check this out. The source distinguishes between having God's image and having his likeness. Think of the image as being like a photograph. It's a static picture. You might have a godly form, you might look the part, but having his likeness, well, that's something else entirely. That's being a living, breathing embodiment of his character. It's when your actions and your will are actually truly aligned with his. And this transformation from just image to true likeness, it's not just some internal change. It actually grants you this unique and profound kind of access, which the source calls knowing the innermost parts.
And this, right here, this is the final outcome. This is the payoff. Through that fear of the Lord, you achieve likeness, and you finally move from being a slave to being a son. You're not an outsider just doing tasks anymore. You get access to the innermost parts. You get to know the deepest things, the mysteries of the Master, just like a son knows his father. You become a true partner in the work.
And so that leaves us with one final powerful thought from this text to really consider in our own lives. It invites us to look past all the busy activity, all the things we're doing, and ask that deeper question. Is it all just work, or is it truly worship?